Imagine walking into your own home, the one place where the world is supposed to stop hurting you. You lock the front door, you set the alarm, and you check the windows. You feel safe. But what if the shadows in the corner of your eye aren't just a trick of the light? What if the floorboard creak upstairs isn't the house settling? In a quiet, affluent suburb, a family lived for weeks with a monster. He didn't break in. He was already there. He watched them eat, he watched them sleep, and he breathed the same air they did, standing just inches away behind a thin layer of drywall. While they searched for a prowler outside, the killer was watching them through the very walls of their sanctuary. This is the chilling reality of a predator who didn't just haunt a house, he inhabited it. The town of Lemoore was the kind of place where nothing ever happened, and that was exactly why people moved there. It was a community of manicured lawns, high-achieving schools, and a collective sense of security that bordered on arrogance. In the center of this suburban utopia lived the Andrews family. Daniel Andrews was a successful software engineer, a man of logic and cold facts. His wife, Sarah, was a local artist known for her vibrant landscapes. Together with their two children, 7-year-old Toby and 10-year-old Mia, they occupied a sprawling, 3-story Victorian-style home that was as beautiful as it was labyrinthine. It was October. The air was crisp, and the scent of decaying leaves filled the streets. The nights were getting longer, stretching their dark fingers across the neighborhood. But inside the Andrews home, something felt inherently off. It started with the small things, the domestic glitches we all dismiss. A box of cereal left on the counter that Sarah swore she'd put away. A window found unlatched in the morning. The remote control missing from its usual spot, only to reappear under the sofa days later. Daniel blamed the kids. Sarah blamed her own forgetfulness. But Mia, the eldest, began to complain of a smell. A faint, sickly sweet odor that seemed to drift from the vents in her bedroom. A smell of old sweat and something metallic. She told her parents she heard heavy breathing coming from the walls at night. Daniel, the man of logic, checked the attic. He found nothing but dust and old holiday decorations. He checked the basement. It was dry and empty. He told Mia it was just the wind whistling through the old copper pipes. He couldn't have been more wrong. As the days bled into weeks, the atmosphere inside the house shifted from cozy to suffocating. The family began to feel a constant, prickling sensation on the back of their necks, the physiological alarm of being watched. One night, Sarah was brushing her teeth when she noticed a tiny pinpoint hole in the drywall behind the vanity mirror. She assumed it was a nail hole from a previous owner, but when she leaned in close, she felt a draft. A cold, steady breath of air that smelled of copper. She called Daniel, but by the time he arrived, the feeling was gone. The house felt quiet, too quiet. On the night of October 24th, the terror finally took a physical form. The family had gone to bed late after a movie. Around 3 a.m., the witching hour, Daniel was awoken by a rhythmic thudding. It sounded like it was coming from inside the master bedroom closet. He grabbed a heavy flashlight and slowly opened the slatted doors. The closet was empty, but the floor was covered in Sarah's silk scarves, which had been tied into strange, intricate knots. Suddenly, a muffled giggle echoed through the room. It didn't sound like a child. It sounded like a man imitating a child. Daniel spun around, but the room was empty. He checked on the children. They were sound asleep, but Toby's window was wide open, the freezing autumn air pouring in. Panic set in. Daniel called the police, reporting a home invasion. When the officers arrived, they found no signs of forced entry. Every lock was intact. Every alarm sensor was green. The lead detective, a grizzled veteran named Miller, looked at the family and saw the raw, unadulterated fear in their eyes. He knew this wasn't a prank or a collective hallucination. He began a systematic search of the house, tapping on the walls, looking for hollow sounds. In the kitchen, behind the pantry, he found it. A hidden latch, disguised as a spice rack. When he pulled it, a section of the wall swung inward to reveal a crawlspace that shouldn't have existed. It was a narrow, dark vein running through the heart of the house. Detective Miller crawled inside with his service weapon drawn. The beam of his flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating a scene of pure madness. There, in a small alcove behind the master bedroom wall, was a makeshift living space. There was a thin sleeping bag, stolen photographs of the Andrews family with the eyes scratched out, and a small portable radio. But most disturbing were the viewing ports. Tiny holes drilled through the drywall that allowed someone to see into the bathroom, the bedrooms, and the kitchen. The killer hadn't been visiting. He had been living with them for nearly a month. He knew their schedules, their intimate conversations, and their deepest fears. He was a 19-year-old named Silas Vane, a local drifter who had worked on the home's renovation a year prior. Silas wasn't just a squatter. He was a predator who enjoyed the psychological torture of being a ghost. He was caught hours later, hiding in the woods behind the property, wearing Daniel's stolen sweater and carrying a kitchen knife. The trial of Silas Vane sent shockwaves through the country. How could someone remain undetected in a busy household for so long? Silas never showed remorse. In court, he looked at Sarah Andrews and whispered, "I liked the way you slept." He was sentenced to life in prison, but the damage was done. The Andrews family sold the house and moved across the country, but they never felt safe again. Every creak, every draft, and every misplaced object was a reminder of the man in the walls. The deeper the investigation went, the more the police realized Silas wasn't just observing, he was participating in their lives like a silent, parasitic twin. Forensics found traces of saliva on Sarah's toothbrush that didn't belong to her or Daniel. DNA tests confirmed that Silas had been using their personal items while they were at work or school. He had sat at their dining table, eaten their food, and even watched television in the living room, always keeping his ear pressed to the floor to listen for the sound of their car pulling into the driveway. One of the most horrifying discoveries was a notebook found in the crawlspace. It was filled with hundreds of pages of meticulous notes. Silas had documented every detail. Sarah cried today in the kitchen. She thinks she's losing her mind. It's beautiful. Daniel argued with his boss on the phone. He looked weak. The boy, Toby, almost saw me today. I stayed perfectly still in the shadow of the velvet curtains. He thought I was a coat rack. This level of intimacy without consent is a special kind of trauma. The Andrews family realized that for 3 weeks, they had no secrets. Their most private moments, their arguments, their laughter, their nakedness had been a staged performance for a monster sitting 3 inches away. The psychological fallout was catastrophic. Mia refused to enter any room with a closet. Toby began wetting the bed, screaming that the wall man was coming to take his eyes. Daniel, once a man of logic, became obsessed with security, turning their new home into a fortress of cameras and steel. Yet he still woke up every night at 3 a.m., flashlight in hand, checking the drywall for pinholes. The community of Lamore changed too. The Mayberry illusion was shattered. Neighbors who used to leave their doors unlocked began installing high-tech surveillance systems. The local hardware store reported a 400% increase in deadbolt sales. But the question remained, how do you lock out someone who is already inside? Experts in criminal psychology who studied Silas Vane called him a frogging predator, a term for people who live in others' homes without permission. But Silas was different. He didn't just want a place to stay. He wanted to possess the family's reality. He wanted to be the invisible god of their household. During his psychiatric evaluation, Silas claimed he felt lonely, and that the Andrews family looked so perfect that he wanted to see if he could break that perfection from the inside out. He spoke about the music of the house, the way the pipes hummed, the way the floorboards sang when Sarah walked over them. To him, the house was a living organism, and he was its dark heart. Even years later, urban legends persist about the house in Lamore. New owners have moved in and out, each leaving after only a few months, claiming the walls seem to breathe. Some say that on quiet October nights, you can still hear a muffled giggle coming from behind the kitchen pantry. The case of Silas Vane reminds us that the human mind is capable of a level of obsession that defies logic. It warns us that our modern sense of security is often just a fragile, thin veil of drywall. We build walls to keep the world out, but sometimes we only succeed in trapping the danger inside with us. The legal system eventually locked Silas away, but the questions remain. How many others are like him? How many people are currently sleeping in a bed, unaware that someone is watching them through a vent or a mirror? The statistics on frogging are notoriously difficult to track because, by definition, the most successful ones are never caught. They are the ghosts in the machine of our suburban lives. As you sit there now, listen. Is the house truly silent? Or is there a sound, a tiny rhythmic scraping coming from the other side of the wall you're leaning against? The case remains a haunting reminder that the most dangerous monsters aren't the ones who break down your door. They are the ones who wait patiently in the dark spaces you never thought to check. They are the shadows you ignore and the sounds you dismiss. Tonight, when you go to bed, take a moment to look at your walls. Are you truly alone? Or is someone right now looking through a tiny hole in the drywall, watching you read these words? The scariest truth about true crime is that sometimes the predator is closer than you can ever imagine. He is hiding in plain sight, waiting for the lights to go out. What would you do if you realized your home was no longer yours? Sleep tight and remember, always check the shadows. If you want to dive deeper into the darkest cases in history, don't forget to subscribe to Dark Case Files and hit the notification bell. New nightmares are uploaded every week. Stay vigilant. Stay safe and never stop looking behind you. Your support helps us bring these forgotten shadows to light. Subscribe now to join the Dark Case Files community and never miss a mystery.